Hello everyone, it is time for this week's live stream. I know, I'm 5 or 6 minutes late, sorry. I was trying to find something, couldn't find it, so we're going to proceed as if I did. In the meantime, our sponsor is Fritz Aquatics. Thank you very much for sponsoring this channel. Coral Magazine is the magazine I've been working on now for, well, I'm going to talk a bit more about it here, but it's been a year, and this is the latest issue. This is going to be coming to mailboxes at the end of the month. The early part of next month, it's going to be showing up at local fish stores. So if you are not reading Coral, I highly encourage you to do so. Of course, I'm going to encourage you as well to be a subscriber because it's the best magazine ever. I do offer consultation services if you need help. All we do is make a connection. We choose a day and time. We do a video chat. It goes on for an hour, maybe longer. And I can help you figure out what's going on with your tank one-on-one. Our newest sponsor is Rogers Reef Food, frozen food. So we are, it's a new type of food to, the average hobbyist, I would say, because it's not the things you normally pick up at Petco or PetSmart. A lot of the frozen foods are either flat packs or they are in those cubes, like little ice cubes. This one here is a flat pack, but it's designed to stay together and let your fish rip it to shreds. So I hope you find that interesting and you might want to check that one out. So here I am. Jack's right behind me there. She's down on the floor. Oh, you can't quite see it. Let's see if I can help here. Let me get out of the way first of all and lower this down a little bit. There she is. There. Jack, no one's seeing you. Stick your head up. What are you doing? All right, well, we tried. All right, let me, we need to celebrate. And so I decided to bring props. I brought a bottle of this. This is Prosecco. I like Prosecco. Jackie, I'm going to make a popping noise. Don't be nervous. So we're going to open this up. Hopefully not destroy the ceiling in this room. My dad accidentally had an incident opening up a bottle of champagne many years ago. And when he was undoing the little wire cage that protects the cork from popping out, it grabbed his finger and just ripped it to shreds. And I was like, wow. So, got to be careful when you're trying to celebrate. Anyway, so we've got the foil off. Jack's still like, she doesn't trust me. So here's the thing I was talking about that tried to hurt my dad. Got a glass right here. And why are we celebrating? We are celebrating because, number one, Caitlin's Reef no longer has dinoflagellates. And that is a huge reason to celebrate. I finally get to look at her tank, and it's beautiful. I'm filling this thing up almost to the top. That's our drink for today. And then I have another reason to celebrate, too. Stick this on here, and hopefully it stays. And maybe stays cold in case I need a refill. So, Jack, you want this cork? Cool. You can decide if you want to chew on that or not. She's like, but I don't drink. Let me fix this lighting. There we go. Nope, it's way off wrong. What is going on today? All right, maybe it'll figure itself out. Okay, so we're celebrating the lack of dinos. And this is what it looks like. Look at that tank. It's got pretty sand. I plucked out a bunch of the Valonia that was in there. And I can feed the tank now and enjoy the tank. I have been frustrated beyond all measure with how long it took for this stuff to go away. And in the solution, the one thing that finally solved the problem was pouring in 1 million copepods. When I say 1 million, that's what I requested. Now, I don't think they actually sent me 1 million, but they actually did, send me 6 or 8 bottles. And I poured almost all of them into that tank, and then I poured one into the new water box, 20 gallon. And I was super excited to watch them just vanish. And of course it didn't happen. And I was like, really? And so I waited a week or two. And then, finally, they're gone. Yay! So I'm really happy about that. And then the other reason I'm celebrating is because of this. Let's see if I can make it pop up. Look at that. That is 1 year of my life right there. Those are the 6 issues of Coral Magazine that I have produced over the last 12 months. Well, technically a little bit less. But there's 6 issues a year, so clearly a year's worth of effort has gone into making these magazines. And each one of those are in order, starting with Modern Aquaculture 2, then the Pincerfish issue, Filtration for Success, which was super interesting with our huge Take 5 with the 5 filtration companies of the U.S. Coral Diseases was good, dealing with what's happening in the Florida Keys, what's happening in different parts of the world, what's happening in Bon Air. There's just, the diseases are rampant, and they also affect some tanks. So we talked a bunch about diseases in that issue. And then Everlasting Stony Corals was fascinating to me, and it was the issue that made me finally accept that we can rename these corals to proper nomenclature and updating the Latin and so forth, which I've been so opposed to for so long. And I was like, now I get it. I finally understand. And then finally, Themed Aquariums. That is the one that's coming out now. So, second celebration. The amount of hours that goes into making these magazines, I can't even put math to it. I mean, I just know how many hours I put in per magazine, and you got to multiply that times all the editors. I'm the executive editor, if you didn't know that. And so that means I get to decide what's in every issue. And I also am responsible for everything in every issue. And I'll tell you something you would not know if I didn't tell you this now. I was looking at the table of contents of the latest issue after we sent it to press and spotted a terrible, I was going to say terrific, a terrible mistake. Not even a typo, way worse. But we were able to get that fixed before it got printed, and I'm super glad that I spotted it. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh no! And I contacted everyone. And then the printers were happy to comply and let us make that adjustment because it wasn't quite too late to fix it. We got really lucky on that one. So you'd never know if I didn't say it, but you're on the Milo's Reef channel. So from time to time you get little nuggets of secrecy released to you that otherwise you wouldn't know. Oh, also I need to let you guys know that this upcoming weekend is Reef Stock Chattanooga. So next Saturday, there will not be a live stream because I will be there. I'm going to be in Chattanooga Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you are considering going to that event, I will see you there. If you're not going, I just have to ask you why you're not going. And this is my first time to Reef Stock. Many years ago, I bought a ticket to go. And the person that was in charge of organizing that event refunded my money. I was like, no thanks. And I was like, okay, I'm not going. And here we are, a decade later, and I'm going. So I knew I'd go there one day. So it's August 24th and 25th. I feel like I'm speaking on Saturday, but I'm not 100% certain. Sorry, I forgot to look that up. But anyway, you can Google this for more information, obviously. And the vendor hall is maxed out with all the booths are sold. And there's a Friday get-together. There's Saturday and Sunday, which is a lot of fun. I encourage you to go for the whole weekend if you can and not just go for a couple of hours, but ultimately that's your decision. I find that the longer you're there, the more knowledge you get to take in. So I would encourage you to do that. And there's a bunch of good speakers at this event. And it makes me want to make a better presentation than the one I have planned. Okay. So I wanted to talk about... I see Amanda. Hi, Amanda. Amanda's one of our editors. So she is waving her hand. She's like, yes, I also proof everything. She finds all the Latin names for all the corals and tells us when a coral is misidentified and what the correct name is. And it's actually, I rely on that very heavily. We each have our own strengths. So, for example, Matt seems to have a pet peeve. Matt Peterson has a pet peeve about the long dash, the M dash. Amanda is the queen of commas. Alex Rose is the queen of dashes, and I constantly go to her every single issue saying, which one is it again? Because there's the hyphen, there's the N dash, there's the M dash. The M dash I kind of know. I've got that one down. But and then the fact is sometimes you don't need one at all, and that's what drives me crazy. I'd rather put them everywhere than get them wrong and have them where they don't belong, or don't have them when I do. So if I just put them everywhere, there's no way I can get it wrong. But she spots those. She spots the tiniest of errors. It's incredible. And then Amy, one of our layout gals, is she's a stickler for the semicolons. I'm sorry, for the quote marks and the apostrophes. And they have to be a certain style of font every single time. And if they're not the right style, I get yelled at. Every time. Every time. Steph, on the other hand, she's more easygoing. She does look for things, and she'll spot things that sometimes we miss, which is great. And then I've been hearing about these orphans and widows for the last year, and I still to this day have the worst time remembering what an orphan or a widow is, but it's very important in publications that those are not there. And then a lot of times we're changing where a word is broken from one line to the next, hyphenated. I know you're like, this is super interesting. No, it's a labor of love. When I told you there's unbelievable amounts of hours, there's probably 2,000 hours in every issue of Coral Magazine. So you got, 2 times 6, 12,000 hours of labor that goes into a magazine that you could probably read, I don't know, in 45 minutes or an hour, depending on, your speeding velocity. But we look for every last possible mistake, any missing periods, anything that's not right. If the caption doesn't go to the right picture, for example, if the picture is completely wrong, the wrong fish, we want to make sure we get that way before you get the publication. So there's a lot that goes into these, and we're even discussing whether to capitalize certain words in the sentence or in the title of an article, and then how to handle that in the table of contents. Oh my goodness. It just goes on and on and on. And I've learned a lot over the last year. A whole bunch. So, Spanky says, that's the stuff that used to be my job in the 80s. Well, I might just keep you on retainer as a backup person. He says, please use asterisks properly. I say he, I don't even know. It could be a woman. Yeah. Asterisks very rarely used in our publications. We can't even use the percent sign. We have to write the word percent. I'm like, oh man, really? And then this last issue, we were, should I say debating? There was a lot of chatter about using PPT versus specific gravity. And I really prefer specific gravity because I feel like that's what we use in the US the most, way more than PPT. And I also feel like the reason we use specific gravity is because it's got a tighter range than PPT. If you say 34 PPT to 35 PPT, that's quite a window where, in specific gravity, that would be a much more precise number, in my opinion. So I don't see a lot of people talking about PPT unless they're just quoting a device. But for the most part, I see specific gravity numbers all the time, everywhere I look, whenever someone's posting their parameters. So I was adamant that we have both types in this issue for the different themed aquariums from around the world and what their salinity measurements are in those different zones. And I included both styles because I just couldn't go with PPT only. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Okay, so today's topic is an easy one. It's a short one. I don't feel like it's going to be dragged out long. In a long, I can't even say the sentence properly. My English is so bad today. We aren't going to drag this out. We are not going to drag this out. I can't even say it. And today I want to work on the Aquashella video and get that released as well. So my brain is kind of like ready to jump into that and get off of the live stream. But I wanted to talk about adding new fish to your aquarium because we all do it. We buy fish, we get excited, we see it at the store. We may buy it impulsively. You're there and you're not going there to buy a fish, but you see it and you're thinking, oh my God, I need it. And then you rush out to buy it. You just say, here's my credit card. I'll take it right now. How long have you had it? Is it eating? These are the things you should be asking. Is it eating? Can you prove it to me? Can you put some food in the tank so I can make sure this fish is eating? And then you should study the new fish carefully. You should look at it as it swims back and forth in the tank and look at both sides of the body. Look at the shape of the entire animal. Look at the fins to make sure they aren't torn up. Look at the mouth, that it's not damaged. Look at the eyes, that they're clear. There's no indication of disease. If there's any kind of fish disease on the fish, I would recommend you pass. I don't recommend, even though you could do this, and it's up to you ultimately, I don't recommend rescuing fish from the store because your job becomes 10 times harder. But if that is what you prefer to do, if you like setting up a hospital tank and coaching a fish back to healthiness, more power to you. But for the average hobbyist, just because you bought it doesn't mean it's going to suddenly do better in your tank if it's already sick. So it would be best to look for the best specimen you can. And if that fish that you see looks great in a tank full of sick fish, I would still pass. I would only pick out a fish that's in a tank with healthy fish because I don't want to bring the plague into my reef tank. Now, let's say we found a nice healthy fish. What is the next step? That would be to put it in safety stop. I should have grabbed a package of safety stop. I've got videos about that on this channel. I've done demonstrations in my reef diaries. Basically, it's a 2-part package that one part is green and one part is blue. The green is formalin. The blue is methylene blue. You need a couple of buckets to put the water in. I usually recommend buying a couple of 2-gallon buckets at Home Depot or Lowe's. I like a white bucket for this. I think it's the smartest move. You would put in 1 gallon of tank water into the first bucket and take the green part of safety stop and put that in there. Add a very small heater. And by very small, I mean the size of a credit card. They sell those at Petco and PetSmart. They're really small. They have no thermostat. They just keep the water around 75 degrees, which is great. They won't cool off in the winter. And, you know, even in the summer, if you put it down on a hard tile floor, the water in the bucket could be cooling off because the bath lasts 45 minutes. But I put in the credit card heater, and I put in an air stone so it's bubbling and circulating the water in the bucket, and I put the fish in there. And then after 45 minutes, I will then put it in bucket number 2 with another gallon of tank water mixed with a blue packet, which is the methylene blue. I move the credit card heater over, I move the air stone over, I grab my net, I catch my fish, I put it into bucket number 2, and I set the timer for another 45 minutes. Now what I'm doing is I'm putting my new fish that I bought that looked healthy at the store through a medicated bath. And this process will end up taking you probably 2 hours from the point of getting home to getting the fish out of the 2-part bath. Because when you first got your fish, you're going to need to acclimate it. Got to get it out of the bag. Got to get it used to your water. But as you're acclimating, then it's going to move into, you know, when it's ready, into your bucket part A. And then go, after 45 minutes, move into bucket part 2 or part B. And when you're doing that, you want to observe the fish. Don't just put it in there, set a timer, and walk away for 45 minutes. Check on it every few minutes and make sure that the fish is okay. If for some reason it is coming to the surface a lot rapidly, which happened with one fish I had, I decided to opt out of continuing with that bath, and I moved it out of the formalin and directly into the methylene blue, which was smart in that order because methylene blue increases the oxygen level of the water like crazy high. I believe I heard 200%. It's much more oxygen rich. And so we can get that fish over there where it can stabilize and calm down. And then after that 45-minute bath, then you can go ahead and put it into wherever it's going to go. Ideally, it would go into a quarantine tank for observation for a few weeks. But most of you don't do that. You probably, and it's not me judging you, it's just more like reality, the dump and pray situation. You buy the fish, you drop it in your tank, you hope everything's going to work out. I mean, that's just the mentality that most people have when it comes to buying fish. But if you can put it into a quarantine tank, the benefit is that the fish can be observed for 2 or 3 weeks to see if anything is going to surprise you. Will a disease suddenly come out of this fish? Can you train it multiple times a day for days on end to eat the foods that you offer so that when you finally put it in your tank after a few weeks, it knows what that food is, and as soon as it hits the water, it smells it, and it just jumps into the fray with all the other existing reef fish and eats. But if you're not a person that's going to move it into quarantine, but you're going to move it directly into your tank, then I would say to put it in the Peacemaker. I was looking for my small one because it would have been so much easier for this video, but all I have is my big one. So this is the Peacemaker that I hang in my 400-gallon reef. I have been using this system since 2011. Whenever I get a new fish, I set this on the top of the reef. It sits on the Eurobrace on both sides. There's a lid right here that keeps the fish from jumping out. I put the fish in the box, And there's a tiny hole in the lid, which you can see right there. And that little hole is allowing me to squirt food into the box for the fish to eat with a pipette. So I will put that fish in there, inside the box, and it'll stay in my tank for 3 days. And after 3 days, the reason for this whole in a box temporarily thing has nothing to do with the disease control. Clearly, there's holes in that box. Water's going to move through it. Your fish is not going to lose its oxygen levels. It's not going to struggle. It is getting adequate circulation of fresh water into the box, but it's not being attacked by its neighbors because it's the new guy. And normally a new fish that goes into your tank is going to be stressed. It's going to be stressed because it got bagged up and the guy spun the bag several times, tied it off, put it on the fish counter. Then he puts it in a bag, then you put it in your car, then your car's shaking the bag of water, and then you finally walk in your door and you put it down, or you float it in the sump, or you float it in the tank, and they see these other fish through the plastic bag and they can't really see it because the bag's a little opaque, so they're stressed. Then if you want to put it through the 2-part bath I just described, it kind of goes through that roller coaster of what is going on, and it just got scooped up in a net and put into this green water, and they get scooped out of the net and put into this blue water, and then someone takes away the air stone and another net comes in again. So I mean, the fish is going through a lot from all the handling, and then if you put it in the box, it can start to calm down. And what happens is while the fish is stressed, it's releasing a hormone into the water that basically tells the other fish, attack it. It's the worst. You would think, don't be stressed at all because you're going to get everyone's attention. But it's that hormone they release into the water column. So if it's in the box, the fish can only see it. They can't attack it. They won't attack the box. I've never seen that happen. They just kind of look at it. I'm like, all right, Mark bought something new. That's what my fish tend to think. But you give that fish 3 days in the box, completely safe from anyone attacking it. You put in food in the box and you put in food in the reef at the exact same time. Whenever you do that, again, the food association, the fish are eating actively, your fish has a chance to eat. It all just works out really, really well. And then after 3 days, you can take the lid off the box, set it aside, and just pour the Peacemaker's fish into the reef. Don't use a net and move it over. Just tilt it in, let it swim out into the reef. And hopefully, in theory, you won't have any aggression when it goes around and introduces itself to all the other fish. Now, that's not guaranteed, but it really, really reduces aggression. And I have put every single fish that I've purchased since 2011, so in 13 years, I have put everything through it, and it has worked fish after fish. I have not had anything come out of the box and then be incessantly hunted down to kill it, which is great. It's a great track record. The last fish chase I can even remember, and I don't remember what year it was, but it was during the last 13 years, was a long-nosed hawkfish I had that was chasing a copper band. And I thought that is amazing because the long-nosed hawkfish doesn't even have a swim bladder. So it parks, it jets, it parks, it jets. It's just, and it was chasing it nonstop. And a butterfly can swim incessantly. That's literally their job. And I was just like, wow, that is amazing. And I took the long-nosed hawkfish to the fish store and traded it in for a new one. And when I did that, this must have been way back. It must have been before the Peacemaker, actually, because I'm pretty certain this was a fish that was in my 280 gallon. And I got my 400 gallon in 2011. So, but anyway, I remember when I came back with the new long-nosed hawkfish, it was like half the size. And when I scooped out the one that was in my tank, it just looked like what I'm used to seeing. But I did not realize how ginormous it was until I came back with this cute little baby one. And I put that in the tank. And of course, there was no conflict whatsoever between it and all the other fish. And so I just kind of had a mean fish and it had to go. So it obviously, it went to the fish store. They, odds are, put it in either a service tank, that they maintain, or they sold it to someone else. But I didn't have the conflict in my tank. I didn't lose any fish in the process. I just got rid of the aggressor. But I do recommend the division. The other day I was watching someone on Instagram, and she had a large sheet of acrylic that had a bunch of slits cut through it, probably laser cut, maybe CNC cut. But it was a huge piece, like this wide and about this tall. And she navigated into the tank. Now her tank had very minimal rockscape, and so she had the ability to put in this divider. And she had put in a copper band into the tank, and it was behind this divider where the fish could see it, but they couldn't attack it. There was a guy on Instagram who introduced a couple of really nice angelfish, and he also did something with acrylic, and then later on he did something with some netting, again trying to corral the fish into a small area. I find like the Peacemaker is just really the best situation, and I make two styles. I make the one you just saw, which is designed to sit on Euro bracing or on the plastic trim of an aquarium. I also make the type that is for rimless aquariums, and I make that in two sizes. The cute little small one for small tanks, and then the normal size one, which is 12 inches long and 6 inches wide and about 8 inches tall, that just hooks on the rimless aquarium. It's super convenient, doesn't fall off the tank, does a great job at letting you observe fish while they're in there for a few days. And I've seen people use them even to hold things temporarily. Like they have an extra anemone and they want to sell it, and they'll put it in the Peacemaker and set the Peacemaker in the corner, and it's right there where they can get it, and it won't get sucked into a power head or anything bad happen to it. So if you're looking for the Peacemaker, it's on my website, shop.milosreef.com. They're $100 for the large ones, and the smaller ones like $60. So if that's of interest to you, I will build it, and you'll have this really cool thing in your possession to make your life easier as a hobbyist. Now, I think I covered everything when it comes to adding a new fish. I didn't talk about fish disease because I'm not a fish disease expert, but if you did get a new fish that has ick on it, for example, let's say you chose to buy it anyway. You're like, I wanted this fish, I don't care, I'll solve it. I can tell you the one thing you should not do with that brand new fish, that is not put it in safety stop. It specifically says on the packet, do not put ick-covered fish in safety stop. So don't do that. But if you do want to put it into a low salinity aquarium and do hyposalinity for a matter of weeks, or if you want to use the tank transfer method and you want to move it from tank to tank for a while, trying to get ahead of the ick cycle and eventually get this fish ick free, then later put it in your tank, well, you can definitely do that. It really comes down to your situation, how much space you have to work with, your passion for this particular fish, the whole effort of rescuing a fish and putting it through everything to get it better. It's commendable. It's just not something I want to do. I have enough going on in my life, and I just can't tackle that. So I don't actually ever do that. And I have seen tanks where I saw a fish that I was like, oh, I like that. And I looked at the rest of the tank. I was like, not enough to buy that one. And I chose not to buy it. It's just not worth the risk for me. I definitely don't want to get all my fish that are in my tank that seemingly are doing well to suddenly be sick. And there are different things that you can bring in with your brand new fish. And ick is one that's well known. Velvet is another one. And when velvet strikes, you lose fish very quickly. It's a matter of days. I mean, it's just like 2-3 days, and you could lose 60 to 90% of your fish population. It's that rapid. And, just adding a UV to your tank is not going to make velvet go away. You got to learn what this disease is, and you got to learn how to resolve it. And almost always, it requires removing the fish from your aquarium, setting up a hospital tank, doing the protocol for the disease, waiting for it to completely recover, make sure it's robust and healthy, leaving your tank fallow for a minimum of 6 weeks, if not longer, so that any traces of the disease that may still be in the water column have died off from a lack of fish. It's a whole thing. And so it's too much. It's too much. So I don't recommend getting sick fish, but if that's something you want to do all the homework before you buy it. Find out what you're going to have to do, find out what disease you're dealing with, find out if you have the right medications, if you know the protocols, if you know the procedures. It's a whole thing. In my goals this year is to actually set up a quarantine tank that will be permanent, that stays running in my fish room in the background. I'll just have that there for if and when I have an impulsive buy, I can drop in that tank. I would really like to add some Anthias to my reef, and I don't want to just buy Anthias and put them in my tank. I think that they, as well as Chromis, are pretty bad about bringing in Uranema, and I don't want to take that chance with my existing reef, with my current fish population. So I would want to put them in quarantine, and I don't have a lot of success with Anthias in quarantine. They seem to do. I have friends that have told me I given up on quarantine. I just put them straight in my tank. Well, I always put them in safety stop, and then I put them in the Peacemaker. And that has worked really, really well for the most part. The few fish that I have lost over the last, 10 years have just been, the occasional one. And it's been, I had a couple that jumped out. I had one that went face first into an acropora colony and I think got stuck and died. And I had some just evaporate. I mean, maybe they were eaten by one of the many anemones in my tank, or the cleanup crew just took care of it, but there was no trace of that fish. It's just I have one less now. And it's just, it's harder. And it's one of the reasons why I love coral so much. Coral, you can frag it, you can leave it alone, you can let it grow and get big, you can just enjoy it for a super long time. I have some corals in my tank that I've had since 2002. One of my anemones is from 2003. Still have it to this day. I mean, that's crazy. 21 years. Spock has been with me for 20 full years as of now. I mean, this is the 17th of August. I think the 280 went up in my house. I feel like it was August 5th. So that was when I got Spock for the first time. Set up the tank in my house. She came with the tank. She went in that tank. And she's been with me for 20 years now. And that's amazing to me. That's really awesome. And I almost had the purple tang that long too. Unfortunately, I lost it last year. I turned on the return pump when I was pushing water back into the tank, and this giant jet of water came shooting out, and I really believe I scared it to death because it just suddenly was dead. And I was like, what happened? And I mean, it was such a sudden surge of water going into the tank that Jack started barking like crazy. I was getting hit with ricocheted water, was hitting the tank and coming out and sprinkling on me. And I was like, what, why are you doing this? And I went and turned the abyss pump down because the flow was too strong. And I'm assuming either the jet hit the purple tang and slammed it into the tank or rockwork, or it just scared the fish because that tang was a very healthy eater. And, so I had it for 19 years. And, really it should have lived longer. And just an accident happened. It's just one of those things you learn. So when I do those big water changes in my tank now where I take out that much water, I turn down the abyss pump first before I cycle it off. So when I turn it on, it's coming in at a slow rate and doesn't do that blast that caught me unawares that one time that ended up costing me a fish. Speaking of healthy fish, Flare, the Japanese pygmy angelfish, I was giving it a good hard look while I was staring in Caitlin's reef, and it is a thick little fish. I've had it now for 2 years, and it's just super pretty. It's about this long right now, I guess, maybe a little bit longer. And while it could probably go in the 400 gallon at this point, I just don't see the need. I kind of feel like it should be another inch larger. Will it grow another inch in the 27 gallon? I don't know. But it's doing really well where it is, so why move it? I bought it its own tank. So again, that might be a reason to keep it there for now. It's in there with a Randall goby and a pistol shrimp, and some gorgonians and some zoanthids and some rorquardia. And I'd like to put something else in there. I might put a leather coral in there. I'd kind of like to put in a couple other little tiny fish. Maybe neon gobies or something fun. What would be a good one for that tank? It needs something small and cute. The little Blenny that I got from Biota, a month and a half ago? It's still in its little isolation box because it's so small, hanging on the front of the Waterbox 20. And it is very, very, the chest is huge on it, and then the tail is thinner. And I think that's just its normal body shape. I think it's just really getting well fed. And I know it's getting really well fed because, number one, when I put the food in, it attacks the food like a lion going at a gazelle. It's just like, chomp, like a lionfish. It eats just like a lionfish. And that box has just filled with so much algae because of the nutrients in that little box. I mean, the box has holes or slits on the side, but it's just impossible to clean. And I don't want to spook the fish out of that box. And it's used to living in a hole, like in a barnacle. And it actually is used to living inside algae. So in a way, I didn't really want to mess with it. But soon I just had a box of green, and I couldn't see the fish at all. So I went ahead and I plucked out a whole bunch last weekend and, made it where I could look and see my fish a little bit better. And then I have on the top a little sheet of plastic. It's really just a piece of a Ziploc bag that I laid on top to keep the fish from jumping into the tank itself. And yesterday I had a plastic bowl, and I'm holding it over that sheet of Ziploc bag, right? which is where that fish is. I'm holding it over there. It's got water in there, and I'm plucking hair algae out of that tank because the hair algae is definitely weakening and getting easier to remove, but it's abundant, and I hate it. So I was plucking it out one pinch at a time, rinsing my fingers, as I always do. And then suddenly hit the bottom of the bowl. It was that little blenny. Like, get off my little habitat. And I just thought, what the heck was that? And so, of course, I checked to make sure the fish is still in the box, and it was. I think it literally hit the plastic, hit the bowl, and like, tunk. I was like, wow, that's funny. This little guy has all kinds of attitude. And I think it'll be a really fun addition when I do set it loose in that tank. I just wanted to make sure it was getting properly fed before I put it into a 20-gallon system, because it's, just a little tiny guy. And, so far so good. I think that's everything for there. Let's go do some questions. So, I'm looking at the comments now. I finally looked at them. See, I try to pay attention to the camera and not stare at the words, but then, the words always, they matter. So I see all the hellos here. Dustin said, Mila's Reef is on. And Vivek says that he's here from India. Hello. Dustin's having a beer while I'm having champagne. Don't worry, Santana. Caitlin's Reef continually reminds us that water testing saves lives. And we'll be bringing that up on the screen here shortly. I don't do that very often. Usually I just have the bottle or have the glass ready. And I thought, I'm just going to bring it out here and just have it ready to pop. And that was fun. And, I could have opened it the other day. But because I was like, the magazine has gone to the printer. Celebrate! But I was kind of like, eh. And then, today I was like, I'm going to do it on camera. That'll be more fun. Jason says, this is a timely topic. After a week of accepting the new fish, my sailfin tang went back to chasing the new fish because I finished a water exchange and disrupted the mood of the reef. Yep, those water changes will do that every time. He really wants us to use the word exchange, and I just don't like it. I just don't like it. Oh, speaking of magazines, I do need to show you guys this, because they do exist, but they're not for me. They're for those of you that like freshwater. So this one right here is Amazonas. This is Fishes and Flora. Then you've got Double Delight Tank to Terrace. And here is Neon Tetras. This one here is Fishes of Africa. So Matt Peterson's been sending these to me as some kind of cruel joke. And Neon Tetras again. So anyway, I might bring these with me to Reef Stock and donate them to freshwater peoples. I know he wants me to read them, but I'm like, it's freshwater. Why would I do that? I can't let my people down, okay? I just can't turn my back on the saltwater people. Fish Ventura says, congrats on the magazine. I have them. That's awesome. I'm glad you have them all. Let's see. We barely use semicolons. Barely ever. But we do use colons a lot. Let's see. I'm looking for another question in here. Trav, I knew this was going to happen. Trav said, that Peacemaker is the size of my entire tank. That is possible. I mean, that little box right there. Let's see what the math is. Like I said, it's 12 long by 6 wide by 8 tall. That would be mathematically 2.5 gallons. So if you have a little tiny Pico that's less than that, yeah, my Peacemaker is larger. I mean, when I do a water change in my reef at this point, and I've done several this year, I change 185 gallons at once. And that is a big chunk of water for my 400-gallon reef, but it lowers the nitrate. And then my Trident NP can measure and actually give me numbers and not tell me out of range. So I'm just going to have to bite the bullet. I've talked about this a zillion times on this channel. Matter of, was it Caleb? I'll come back to that in a second. But I've had, quite a few people over the years recommend trying a sulfur denitrator. Yes, I could dose vodka. I mean, there's lots of choices. I kind of think I want to do the sulfur denitrator because I've never done it. So that'll be kind of a new experience for me. And of course, it's going to work, and it's going to resolve this entirely, and then I can start putting in tons of fish in my tank, and it'll look like confetti in there. So Caleb wrote me an email a few days ago. I could probably pull it up here. I went looking for it, and I couldn't find it, and then I did find it after I wrote him saying I lost it. I think it was this. I don't know. I got to move this box. I can't see anything. Sorry, there's so, when you run the live stream, there's like all these things on my screen, and they just cover up everything. It drives me crazy. So let's see if we can do this. Let's try this one and see if it's right. Okay, yes. So Caleb wrote me because he was placing an order and he had to update me on some stuff. But then he said this. Wait, is it the right one? God, I hope it's this one. Nope, that's not it. Got to find a different Caleb. 1 second here. Oh, I don't have enough room on this screen. I need more screens. Maybe it's this one? Nope. Dang it. Well, like I said, I thought I saw it, then it vanished. Anyway, I'll just have to paraphrase because I can't find it. But anyway, he said, whatever you do, never stop live streaming. And I kind of smiled, and he said, I have been through every single one of your live streams twice. And we have I don't know, hundreds of live streams on this channel. And some of them are super long. I mean, I know there's some that are like 4.5 hours. And he likes to listen to them while he's doing tank maintenance on Saturdays. And he must also watch it at other times too, because how much maintenance could you possibly do to put up with that many live streams? And I know over the years I've talked about several topics repeatedly, so the fact that he went to plow through all of them 2 times is extremely impressive. I'm just like, wow. So Lord Thornton says, maybe Mark can make something that purges disgusting bristleworms from my tank. Number one, bristleworms are not disgusting at all. But if you don't like seeing them, you need to put in a couple of predators to eat the excess of them. It's okay to have some. They definitely serve a purpose. They exist on this planet for a reason. I mean, if we're going to destroy anything and get rid of it, it should be mosquitoes, okay? That's the thing that should go. Even flies, they should go. But bristleworms, they're not so bad. But if you are looking for something you put in your tank, that will. I just pet Jack and fur went everywhere. Stop! Get out of the way. Okay. You can put in a long-nosed hawkfish, like I mentioned before. Those fish eat bristleworms. Or you can put in an arrow crab. The arrow crab will just reach in, pull it out, tear it in half, and eat it. So if you put one or both of those in your tank, it will cut down on the population significantly. There are some people that will have such a prolific amount of bristleworms that it's unbelievable. I mean, to the point where maybe it is disgusting. If the entire bottom of your tank is just pink worms moving like crazy, yeah, that's too much. But you know why you have that many? Because there's that much available food. So if you are overfeeding your tank and the population of the worms is going to equalize with the amount of food available. Now, I'm not saying starve your tank out, but you're going to need a predator to cut down their population significantly. Yes, you can tweezer out a bunch of them as well. There are people that sell bristleworm traps, and I'm kind of amused by that. I just think it's crazy that people feel like they need to be trapped in tubes or nets or whatever and eliminated, because I've never had an abundance that was so bad that it caused any kind of problems. They literally are detrivores. They eat the waste in the tank. That's their one job. And so if they are found eating a fish or they're eating a clam, they're eating the dead fish or they're eating the dead clam. That's to get rid of it, to clean up. That's what they do. And you can feed bristleworms if you wanted to. You can put pellet food on the sand and they will come out and they will eat it, and you can watch the pellet move through their gut. Sort of. There's like a bump. I don't know if you could. I've never tried to backlight ones to make it glow through the skin, but I have watched them, and they have like a mouth about, a 1/4 inch from the end that they'll open up, and they'll ingest that pellet food and then take it into their body. But if you have too many and it's unsightly, then yeah, you need to put in a arrow crab or a long-nosed hawkfish. Lord Thornton also says, I have a peacemaker and it's great, although now it collides with acros at the top of the water. That is the problem. So in my tank, I have a specific spot where the peacemaker fits every time, no matter what. And that is between my two return nozzles. So as the water is shooting out of those, the peacemaker sits between them. It's the perfect spot. If I had to put it on the other end of the tank, it would be a problem because there's only so much space over there based on what's going on with my reef and how large the corals have grown. And for example, Carl, who may be on this channel right now, he said he was going to join us today. He ordered a peacemaker for me a long time ago on a very strangely shaped tank. I could never even think of a way to build one that would hold on to the shape of his tank. And there was no way to put it in the tank based on the coral density he had because it went all the way to the surface. And I kept thinking, how can I make you something that's going to work under those circumstances with those corals? And I never could. So he's just been sitting on store credit with me, and we're going to use it for something else today. So that's nice. But you do need to have an open spot for the peacemaker. And the benefit of the one I make for the rimless tanks is you've got 3 sides of the tank to hang it on. So usually you can find a spot where it's going to work. Elaine says, if you have a nano tank and you're able to insert a divider, the plastic mesh mats that are used for needlepoint work very well and can be cut to size. That is great advice. I know in the past people have also used egg crate, and they would cut that to size and then drop that in and try and wedge it into the glass to keep the fish from fighting the fish on the other side. Reefkeeper says, my Red Dragon return pump does a slow start before hitting full speed. I like that feature. I do too. I think that's pretty cool. My Abyss does not. If it's ready, I mean, if it's set to 80%, it's going to kick on and then it's get going and it's going to start shooting. But as long as those nozzles are underwater, it's no problem. But when it's shooting into air, because the tank has been drained so far, that's when it gets more dramatic in my household. Trav says, hey, some live streams are 24 hours. We did have one. We did that last year. That was a marathon. And I'm glad that we survived it. I'm glad it was successful. And if we do another one next year, we'll do it differently. I'm going to definitely discuss with a few other people what would be the best Markna 2.0. You know, like what would we do that would be better? And if you have any suggestions, feel free to either put them in the comments or send me a message directly and tell me what you'd like to see so I can consider it. Because I want to do a fun show that everyone enjoys and that will be very much appreciated. You know, that people are going to want to attend, you know. What's up, Jackie? I know, sweetheart. Just go lay down. All right. What other questions do you have today? We're ready to end. We're only 48 minutes in and we have no more questions. I'd be happy to answer some today. Because next weekend I won't be here. Let's see. What else can I tell you from this week? Oh, I've had people ask me, how's my heart? It's still an ongoing thing, but I'm seeing a specialist on Monday. And it's just going to be the first time meeting them, but at least I'm in the right direction. It's funny, my doctor said, okay, I'm referring you to this cardiologist. I said, okay. And then after a few hours or the next day or something, I got a text saying, here is the doctor, the address, the phone number. And so I wrote them back instantly and said, I will call them right now. And then they said, no, let them call you in the next 48 hours. Don't call them. If you don't hear from them, then call. So within a few more hours, I got a phone call from them. I was like, oh, great. And she said, would you like to come in the mornings or the evenings, or mornings or afternoons? And I really prefer afternoons. And so I told her that. And then she said, all right, you know, we can see you August 30th. And I said, okay, but should I be waiting that long if it's a heart issue? And she said, well, let me look at your file. And then she's looking at it and she said, you know, verify your date of birth. And I was like, yeah. And then she said, well, it doesn't say stat. Like, okay, but I've been trying to see one for weeks now. I'm finally getting this referral. I just don't know if we're supposed to wait 2 more weeks. And I'd rather, you know, be in there sooner than later. And then she said, well, you asked for afternoons. And I said, yeah, I did, because I hate getting up in the morning. And she said, well, most of these doctors don't work in the afternoon. They work in the morning. So that's our first opportunity. And I was like, well, you didn't mention that. I will get up for this appointment. When do you want to see me? And she says, oh, okay, hang on. And then she said, how does next Monday sound? I was like, sounds fantastic. Thank you so much. And she said, we'll see you at 2:45. I said, isn't that during the afternoon? And she kind of laughed and she said, yes. I said, didn't you just say I have to be there in the morning? And she said, I'm squeezing you in. I was like, well, I really appreciate that. Because I realize everyone that is trying to meet with a specialist has a reason to see the specialist, and none of them want to wait. So, I mean, I wasn't trying to cut ahead of anyone. I'm just trying to get in there as soon as possible to get me better so I can feel better, because it's just been really tough. I mean, you know, I'm on some new medicine that's helping, but I'm still tired all the time, and I'd really like to just feel normal and not exhausted. That would be so nice. Elaine says, I would love to see a dry rock scape off from Markna 2.0. You know, that's not a bad idea. Okay, got it. Hillbilly Reefer says, a 24-hour live stream while you trim the tank. You would be so bored, or you'd see my butt the whole time. There needs to be a person that can walk around with a camera and get around the bodies and get into the tank and show what's happening. You know, really just like get in there. I think really it's, rather than a live stream, maybe better to be a video and then edit it down to something reasonable instead of 24 hours. Winterwater says, when your HANA says the ALK is 8.5 and ATI's ICP says it's 6.9, what do you do? That is actually a really good question, because I'm seeing it all the time. Hang on. Let me take this off. Yeah. Okay. Now you can scratch all you want. When someone buys the Trident, and then they compare it to their HANA, and say, well, the HANA says it's this. And I'm like, yeah, but the Trident cost you 10 times as much. And like, yeah, but I don't think it's true. Well, why do you think the HANA is true? I mean, I understand you want to think it's true. And I mean, this is something that was told me a long time ago, and I never forgot it. That people that see a digital readout on a screen, like on a calculator, they believe that to be the word of God. Yeah, it's just, there's no way that's not true. It has to be correct, because it's digital numbers on an LCD. And so all those HANA checkers have that little LCD screen, and you see a number and you think it must be true. But people didn't doubt their Salifert test kits, and they didn't doubt their Tropic Marin test kits, or I mean, yeah, I know some people doubted their API. We all know that. But the fact is, we'd buy a test kit, we would test it, you know, the solution for whatever it is we're doing. We'd look at the color, we'd compare it to the chart, and we'd say it is this. And we usually believed it until someone pointed out to us that it was grossly incorrect. Like, for example, years ago, I had an Elos nitrate test kit that said my nitrate's always 0. And I just thought my nitrates are 0. And then a customer had bought one of the same kits I'm using and said, hey, there's something wrong with this kit, because it's telling me that my nitrates are 0, but Salifert says they're 20. I said, oh, well, why don't you bring over some of your water and your test kit, and we'll test your water with your kit and with my kit. And both of our kits said 0. But then I grabbed some other brand, and I was like, oh, they are up. I think we have defective kits. And that's how we found out. Now, for some reason, people want to doubt. They always want to doubt the Trident. Always. Always. All the time. And they never, ever feel like they doubt the HANA. And it just amazes me, because I feel like your HANA does have a window of error. There is a margin of error on every single test. And it shows it in the instructions, how wide the range is. So if you're seeing, like, for example, he said it's ATI said it was 6.9, but his kit said it was 8.5. Well, you have to find out what their margin of error is for the alkalinity HANA checker. But if it's like 1 DKH, then it could be between 7.5 and 9.5. That's how big the window, or maybe, I'm sorry, it would be 7.5 to 8.5, or maybe it's 8 to 9, just that point half each direction, and you're right in the middle. Or maybe you're at the top end of the margin of error, or maybe you're at the bottom end of the margin of error. I mean, there is a possibility of a margin of error. I don't know how ATI tests their alkalinity measurements. I know for a long time ICP tests didn't do it. And now they're including it. Now how they're doing it, are they using a HANA checker? Are they using a titration test kit? Are they using a Trident? I don't know. I don't know what they're using, but I do understand the concern. But really, in the end, it's always going to be the same thing when it comes to numbers on your tank. How is the livestock doing, number one? Okay? So if your livestock is doing great, and the test kit you use continues to tell you a number somewhere around 8.5, then you could believe your tank is 8.5. That is the trend that your tank displays to you with your own personal testing. Now, if every single time you send a water sample to ATI, and you always get the 6.9, 7.0, 6.8, that's just their trend. But it's still around the same area every time you send in a sample. So you see, you can follow the trends whether you're relying on ICP or you're relying on a handheld test kit like the checker, or if you're using a titration test kit like Elos or Nios or Saliford or whatever else brand you want to use that's on the market. But ultimately, yeah, that it can be really frustrating not knowing who to believe is the most accurate. Now, what you can do is you can buy a standard. I believe it is Fauna Marin sells a standard that has all the numbers on the side of the bottle. So, alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, potassium, it's the whole list. So when you take some water from that bottle and put it through your test kit, the number that your test kit shows should match the number on that bottle. That is the best way to find out if your device is telling you the truth. And perhaps your device is a little bit out of whack and needs to be calibrated, if it can be calibrated at all, because I don't know if you can with HANA or not. All right, Travis is back to more humor about, he says, how about a live stream for 24 hours with power? Yeah, I can't disagree with that logic. That's a pretty good suggestion. Thank you. I don't know how we didn't think of that. Can we have AC too, or is that going to have to be another suggestion you make? So good. That was a funny one. How about with power? That would be awesome. All right. Any more questions? Otherwise, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to jump to the end. Or I'll just sit here and drink. I haven't had any food in a few hours, so I'm going to feel that pretty quick. Technically, I already feel it a little bit. But that's okay. Let's see if I have anything to show you. Here, I will grab for you guys a quick video of flare. Let's see what this one looks like. Yeah, that's no good. This fish is just the worst. She does not stay still for the camera whatsoever. What a punk. Okay, I'm going to send this one to my computer. And then we'll fling it on the screen. In the meantime, show you what the reef looks like currently. So there's my tank right now. Kyle's here. He said he's sorry he's late. He was at his fish store. That's okay. You're supporting your local economy. You're a good person. All right. So I'm going to, this video I shot is vertical though, y'all, so it's going to look dumb on the screen. But we will just do a plus. And then we'll stick this on there. So here is Flare. And as you can see, she's nice and thick. And won't stay still. Can't even focus on the darn thing. You'd think she drinks coffee. But that's a Japanese pygmy angelfish. They come from deep water. And that one was tank raised. And I was very, very happy to get it. I've been wanting one for 17 years. And when I got her, I immediately had to buy her own tank. And she's been there ever since. Aquaball says, I just got some new fish. A chalk bass and some red striped cardinals. Ooh, I like the red striped cardinals. They're really pretty. I tried some way back when I set up my frag system, and I had them. They were really pretty, but I didn't have them for a super long time. I feel like 2-3 months they were just gone. And I don't know why. So good luck with yours. I hope they do well. I hope they do better than mine did. Tim says, I have a nano reef tank. Can I take out all the live rock and put in new dry rock? Will it crash the tank? No, but what you're doing is, because it's a nano system, you're taking away the bacterial load that is handling your livestock right now. So if you were to take it all out and replace it with dry rock, you're taking away all that beneficial bacteria, and you're putting in rock that does nothing other than be a structure to glue things to, but it won't do anything good for your tank, and it probably won't do anything good for the tank for like 9 months. So what is wrong with the rock you have right now? Let's talk about that and see what we can do to resolve what you have in the tank, because I wouldn't do what you're describing. Kyle, we're going to act like you didn't say that. Trav says, that's a pretty fish. Yeah, Flair is gorgeous. That's her, by the way, under the Fritz logo. That was when I got her back in 2022. Just a little tiny thing. And as you saw in that video, she's grown quite a bit. Here, we'll do it again because that was a really short video. I just realized the audio was on. I don't know if that made it difficult to hear me before. The nice thing is, the lady that raised this fish, from eggs inside an aquarium, she said mine is prettier than hers. I actually liked hearing that. I'm like, that's awesome. Because it's just a beautiful fish. I know some might say, well, it kind of resembles a coral beauty a little bit, but it's those dots on its back and, especially around its face, that they just pop. They pop with blue. They're just really, really pretty. And depending on the angle you have and the lighting, is going to be all the difference to how this fish appears to your eye. She is captive bred. So what happened was, let me put this on loop. I like it when they're on loop and they just go, go, go. Here we go. She, according to the breeder, she went ahead and rented the parents from somebody, whoever owned the male and female Interruptus, and put them in a tank together and let them spawn. She captured the eggs and the sperm, and she raised them from those eggs. And then when she had them for something like 7 months, I think, that's when she put them up, made them available to sell. And they were, it was a post on Facebook. And I wrote her within 1 hour and said, oh my God, I want one. And I thought by then there was none left because it's been a whole hour. You know how things go really fast on the internet. And she said, how many do you want? And I was like, I can't afford more than one. And I got the one fish. So, but yeah, it is captive bred, but it was raised in an aquarium. So it's, I don't know, Jason, I might be mixing those terms up. I'm not a breeder, so I tend to goof that stuff up. All right, let's come back to this. Bob says his pH is up to 8 and his alkalinity is up to 8.4. That's good news. I'm glad to hear that. I need to oh, matter of fact, we should stick that on the screen right now. Today is water test Saturday. You know what that means. Got to check all your water parameters because water tests save lives. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to measure my 400 gallon today. Then I'm going to measure the 27 gallon. And then I'm going to measure the water box 20 gallon. So I've got 3 tanks to measure. My life is getting more complicated every time I add a new tank to my life. And I kind of want to add more. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Fish Ventura says, in my experience with a gold flake angel, they get thick because of a lack of current in the tank and room to scoot. Had mine on a Red Sea 170. A new tank ended being late, and the fish slimmed over a year. Let's see, is there more to that? Oh, slimmed down in the newer tank. Well, I'm not saying she's fat, but she's nice and thick. I feel like she's a healthy size. That's all I meant. I don't know that I want her to be any thinner or slimmer. I think she looks just right, to be honest. How did that gold flake do for you? Is it still with you now to this day? I think it's another really pretty angel. That one is not reef safe, am I correct? Rookie Reefer says that'd be worth a fortune in Australia. The Interrupta sells for $2,500 here in the United States. I don't know what that costs in Australia. It's a lot of money. Spanky says, is that the same angelfish as an Interruptus angel? Well, yes, it is. One was for sale here in St. Louis, and the price was thousands. Yep. So I wanted mine really badly, and anytime I looked at one that was for sale, I just was like, I just couldn't buy it in time. Because I can beat up a credit card better than anyone. I'll just put it on the card if I have to. I don't need to have the money sitting in my savings account. It can just be a credit card. I'll just charge it. But it's a lot of money for something that could possibly die. And that is a very scary risk for me, you know? So when I got her, I was actually nervous. What happens if she ships and dies during shipping? What if something goes wrong? And I actually asked the shipper, not the breeder, the shipper. I said, all right, so you're going to receive this fish in California, hold it for 24 hours, rebag it, and ship it to me. What if something goes wrong? And he said, I'll take care of you. I was like, what does that mean? It's not like there's a bunch of these extra fish and you just can grab another one from the vat. It's like, this is pretty much one of a kind, so to speak, And he says, don't worry. And of course I was worried, but I was also hoping for the best. And I was very excited to open up the cooler, and the water was perfect. The fish was perfect, adorable, beautiful. And I put it in the Peacemaker, and it was hanging in my reef for nearly 3 weeks while I cycled that 27-gallon. And that video is on this channel. If you never watched that video, it's a good one to watch because I show the whole cycle. I showed all the water test results as I kept testing water parameters daily until finally the tank was ready. And I remember someone put in the comments, it was pretty funny, and they weren't wrong. They said, so you set up a brand new tank, put it through a cycle, and then you put in the most expensive fish you ever bought in your life in that tank to see if it would survive. And I was like, that's not exactly how I would have worded that. I would have said, I built it the perfect environment, and then when it was ready, I put the most expensive fish I ever bought in my life into that new environment. But technically they were right. I could have put in like a clownfish and see if it lived, and then put in the Japanese pygmy angelfish. But no, that's not what I did. I do feel like I put the Randall Goby in first, though. I'd have to double check the video, but I think I might have put in one other fish first. Kyle says, was that the woman in Hawaii? Yeah, it is. I'm struggling to remember her name right now. I always see her name, and I'm like, oh, yeah. But then when I need it, I can't think of it. Karen Britton. She's the one that raised that fish. And that was the other reason I bought it. Because I knew the breeder. I knew the fish. I knew the date of the birth of the fish. I was like, I know its actual birthday. I totally want this fish. So, yeah, I got it. Rookie Reefer says a conspiculatus angel is over $10,000 in Australia. Yeah, but Conspics are awesome. Over here, we can buy a Conspic hybrid from, what is the name of that company? Poma Labs, and I think they're like $5,000 or $6,000 each. They're a lot, even here. And then even, you buy it, you don't know if it's going to eat your corals. I mean, it probably will. That's the big thing. It's like there's so many beautiful fish, but can you pair them up with what you have in your tank, or will you have to sacrifice like an entire type of coral? Like, will all your LPS corals be at risk? Someone recently showed a picture of an angel they got. I can't remember what kind it was, but they said, this eats SPS. But I have a tank full of SPS, so that's okay. I was like, wow. I mean, obviously this person just has SPS just to have SPS, and it's not like they have a tank full of, something that's like super high dollar, like, well, there's been different ones on the market, but like what used to be expensive is now a bargain. Walt Disney Acropora was really expensive initially, and getting a little tiny bit was like $100 or more for a crumb. And then there was something else that came out later on that was even $500 for a little piece, and then there was another one's even more. And I wouldn't put an angel that eats Acropora when the Acropora costs $500 up and higher. It's too much. Thomas says, can I get away with doing a water change 25% once a month? Yes, you can. I've been telling you that for years. Yeah, I saw that you had to have surgery, Thomas. Thank you for the super chat. I hope that you feel better and that everything goes well and you get back to your normal self soon. Man, a banded angelfish went for $35,000. I assume that, yeah, that's got to be 1,000. Over here last year. Some of the pricing on the high-end angels is insane. It really is. It's it makes me glad that we don't have to spend that kind of money. I mean, stings are still expensive now, but not crazy like you just described. I mean, for example, the peppermint angelfish, I think that one's $25,000 a fish, and I only know a couple of people that have had them. I could not possibly afford that one, and I don't know if I'd want to have a tank for that fish. It's pretty, again, huge risk. Will it get to me alive? And then how long will it live? I don't have, I'm not, I told you I can beat up a credit card, but first I have a credit card that has a balance that goes up to $25,000, and I don't have one that I could use for that. My personal credit cards don't go that high. My business cards, they're high enough, but my CPA would write me a strongly worded letter if I bought a $25,000 fish tomorrow. Evan says, see you at Reef Stock next week. I will. Evan used to hang out with me back in the day when I was doing Reef Cast with Evan Luck. And we had some good times back then. And he's still going, just like me, all these years later. I'm looking forward to this Reef Stock, Evan. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We should get Evan Luck to show up, too. That would be fun. All right. So let's just wrap this up so I can start working on the video I want to edit for you guys. It is Water Test Saturday. Please do test your water parameters. Double check that all your numbers are where they need to be. If they're wrong and you need to make adjustments, you could use the different reef chemistry calculators to determine what you need to add. And then when you're adding the element that's lacking, don't use it at full strength unless you totally know and you've done it repeatedly with the same results. But if you're doing this like today, let's say your calcium's too low and you did the calculator and it says you need this much to bring it up to the number you want, then use like 50% of that today and then test again tomorrow and see if it brought you halfway there. And then if it did, then use the rest of it. But don't just put it all in today in one dose, because if there's any mistake, you could overdose your tank and affect livestock adversely. So we want to make sure we're being cautious and putting in the right amount, or taking our time and putting in the right amount a little bit over a couple of days to get that sweet spot. And then just stay on top of it by testing weekly. And if you keep doing that each week, you will avert a lot of losses and you'll get to enjoy your reef tank. It'll be more relaxing if you do this little bit of work that's not fun. But water testing should be part of your routine. I've told you guys, and I still sell them, if you don't own the Smart Stir, it is a great way to mix up the solution as you're putting in the drops, as you're testing alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, potassium, these different tests, phosphate and nitrate. I never shake a vial. I just let the Smart Stir do it. It's super convenient. I sell them. They're fantastic. You charge it once with a wall charger, and it lasts like 3-4 months before you have to charge it again. And that's with me using it so frequently. So you should get one if you don't already have one. It'll make water testing more fun, and you'll enjoy it. Like I do. I think it's fun. If I just had to sit there and hold the vial and do this all the time, I would have less fun, and I'd be less inclined to do my water testing. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. I will not see you next week. I will be at Reef Stock. Come find me there. And there is a booth there for Coral Magazine, and that is definitely where you're going to find me over the weekend. Bye, guys.